Right.
I should have done that a while ago.
We missed all the good stuff. He's talking about we shouldn't believe everything Dogen or anybody else says to us. With this right attitude toward your practice that Dogen was so kind to point out, in the course of 20 to 40 years of constant, concentrated, diligent, and intense Zazen, the little self will become completely dissolved well within your lifetime. Mokusho Zen, Mokurai, Zen of silent illumination, each day you will feel the gradual increase in radiant self-nature. From the point of view of original enlightenment, there is no change during all those days, years, and decades of long practice. The change, rather, is that you are touching and listening more to the primal ground that has always been present in constant quantity and quality, described from an earthbound perspective. From the point of view of us living a happy life, however, it takes time to change bad habits, and that seems like gradual progress. If you bite your fingernails, how many years do you think it will take to stop? Providing, of course, that you are really serious. In Soto Zen, we each set about changing the fundamental bad habit of blind, limited, and conditioned perception. So it will seem to take a very long time indeed. Dogen, more than any other Zen master before him, emphasized this approach to Soto Zen as being the only Zen approach compatible with our original self. Today in Japan, the most popular sect is the Soto sect with approximately 18,000 temples teaching on all 4 islands. I think that this is one indication through Paya, skillful means of teaching for our age, of the Zen of silent illumination, that's Mokusho, the Zen of practice equals enlightenment, the practice of Soto Zen. Zazen of the Soto sect has been used as a therapy for patients in mental hospitals in Japan, Europe, in some places in the United States with success. So he's bolstering this argument. Anybody bite their nails? Sensei also used to say, beware of that one little thing you allow yourself. You're so good in every other way, you say, oh, it's okay if I do that. So that's not so bad. That's what'll get you in the end. I have at least 108 of those. Anybody in the room? Anything else? Kuroda is one of the few people on board today who actually met Matsuoka Roshi. Kuroda, does any of those stand out for you? Or is there something else you'd like to tell everybody about him?
He was a character. All of the topics you've read are interesting to me. And of course, I've read all of his talks and heard some of them in person. I don't really know what else to say about him, but he was certainly different.
If you go online and look at the teasers for the upcoming video, there's some like 4 of them online. One of them is Matsuoka Roshi doing a ceremony, and you'll see Corolla with long red hair is in that ceremony. That was back in the 80s. So,
Ojo Sensei.
Yes.
How about, and I got the phrasing wrong, but it's something about, of course, there is no second thing to distrust, something about change.
There is a second thing to distrust. Well, he talks about, in the Dhyana, he talks about distrusting history. He said history is one of the great deceivers. And he goes on to talk about that, for instance, when you read the history, it looks like Dogen was the standout genius Zen master of the time, but there were literally hundreds or thousands in all sects, not just in Soto Zen. So he says history is the great deceiver. And let me just read a little bit of the paragraph before there is a second thing to distrust, because this is the main point. I warn you, And this was in Jnanayana, way amongst the ways. If you're trying to figure out how you should practice, Tibetan Buddhism, this or that, and which way I should go, you can't know a priori. You have to go in and try, of course. But here he's recommending Soto Zen, and for all different reasons. That he thinks it fits the American persona as do-it-yourselfers and simple. It's down to earth. But he wants to. He's warning against not just teachers in Soto Zen, but teachers in the whole spiritual diaspora to the United States. And we all have seen so many scandals and so forth. Nothing quite like the Christian church, but then that's much bigger and it's been here a lot longer. So he says, I warn you not to rely on a particular human tradition or a name alone as an emblem of true transmission of wisdom. There are lazy, self-important, and indulgent priests who do possess the, quote, right credentials, not because they have penetrated to the core of life and death, but because they are clever in a worldly sense. Absolutely, you cannot trust them. It would be disastrous emotionally and mentally to do so. And yet, you can find this sort in Zen centers throughout the United States and Asia, urging those who are confused and lack conviction to seek the ultimate freedom and pay the proper tribute, or pay the proper tribute first, then seek the meaning of enlightenment later. Seek rather a teacher of genuine understanding, someone who may have a known name and high rank, or someone who may not have neither. Nor should you simply judge a teacher by the number of disciples and students gathered around in what appears to be prosperous circumstances. Judge rather by the nature and perseverance of the Zen practice of that teacher. Most important in choosing a Zen path and a Zen teacher is your, quote, root connection, if it is there at all. You may not fully discover your root connection in a meeting, or in a week, or a month, or a short season of practice. But from the first, you will know something of that connection. It will seem right for you. From the very beginning, the same things that motivate and fool you about the study of Zen have motivated and fooled others before you. They, too, have sought out a special teacher, school, sect, or way of Zen practice. There is, of course, a second thing to discuss. There is nothing that is static, so do not look for an unchanging Zen tradition any more than you would look for an unchanging you. In examining Zen as it has been taught in all the different times and places in the last 2,500 years or so, the form has changed and changed and changed again. The original Vinaya, or monastic rules, as set down by Shakyamuni Buddha to his disciples, are no longer all practiced in the monasteries of modern China and Japan, and yet the Zen practice is as authentic as the first practice of the historical Buddha. Let me stop and make a point here. One of his frequent sayings was, Zen is always contemporary. This is what he means. It was contemporary for Buddha, it was contemporary in China, it was contemporary in Vietnam, Korea, Japan, and so forth, and it's contemporary now. 13th century Soto Zen master Eihei Dogen had a great doubt about Soto Zen, which perhaps many of you share. I hope this doubt will motivate you with the same intensity that it did Dogen, if you share this doubt. Dogen wondered why this silent illumination Zazen, this Mokusho Zen, was necessary to practice if everyone is already enlightened. The answer came after years of great perseverance in practice. The answer came from Dogen's wisdom heart that Zazen practice and enlightenment are the same. Zazen is the expression of enlightenment. In this realization, Shusho Ichi no, that means Zazen and enlightenment are just one, Ichi means one, some important points are hidden. I hope that in explaining them, it will aid your own practice. And that's when he goes into the 5 minutes of practice, 5 minutes Buddha. He'd say 10 minutes practice, 10 minutes of Buddha, half hour practice, half hour Buddha. Wouldn't you want to be Buddha all day? So I think Harold did a wonderful job in selecting 4 talks that partially cover this subject. Why Soto Zen in particular? Anybody else, or let me ask you a question. What is the major point that has stood out for you in just hearing this kind of survey of some of Sensei's comments in this introduction? What has stood out for you as a takeaway, maybe? I know my mellifluous tone of voice. We don't see no hands.
I'm a hand.
Oh, there's a hand. Oh, there's one.
I'm seeking a mic.
Okay.
I was just thinking, okay, whoa, I'm saturated, just because it's a lot of different thoughts and concepts, and I'm kind of a simple girl wanting a thing to think about. But I really appreciated the notion of the 6 colored sheets and karma and the 6 states of mind. Like, that's such a powerful visual for me. And thinking about, it's sort of this, I was thinking, okay, that's animal existence. That's my sex, drugs, and rock and roll. and strife is, the treadmill of life, my stress of raising children. And then, humanity is when I help and when I love, and what I'm hopefully more and more heading towards the 2 final states. But I feel like that thought, that concept sort of infuses all of these others as well. The idea of changing bad habits and mind and body being considered one, and knowing and experiencing. Just reading about Zen doesn't do it. You have to actually practice Zazen and sit.
So he warned a lot about book knowledge. He said the Western mindset is, if I read everything there is published about Zen, I know everything about it. And obviously, experiential truth, direct knowledge, sensory knowledge, if you will, or trans-sensory knowledge, is what's important in Zen. So he was very leery of being, emphasizing the literal too much. But I think he did a marvelous job teaching in a second language. I can't imagine going to Japan and trying to teach Zen in Japanese.
We might have a comment or question.
I saw a hand in the upper right corner.
That was
Can't
a
read
cursor.
the name. Alex Allen. Can you read that name?
Sensei, that was the cursor.
Was what? Oh, that was just the cursor. Okay. Michael.
Yeah, I feel like I'm about to repeat what you maybe just said, but but I think the 2 comments, the one about letting knowledge integrate or penetrate your daily life, was really interesting to me. Maybe really interesting, maybe really enlightening. But because there's you walk around a lot and you have all that knowledge up there, but to really integrate it, to really penetrate your being, is kind of that, that step of becoming a whole being, whole person, whole living, whole action. But the other comment was the one about the bad habits too, because I was thinking about that and how you said, don't let one small, even bad habit pass. Don't think, that's just, it's just nothing, it's just one small one.
Yeah, and be careful about that little thing you allow yourself.
Yeah, and you mentioned, biting your fingernails, but, I was thinking, I was like, all the time when I'm driving or I'm sitting, because I, let the anxiety get to me and I have anxious habits, I used to pick my lips a lot. It used to kind of be something like that. And I was just thinking, that's that one, that's the one small thing that I might be letting pass, but yeah, I think those really hit for me.
In Zen, we're encouraged to examine these things. Dogen would often use the expression, examine thoroughly in practice, meaning Zazen, but it's not exactly a navel-gazing Freudian loop back through, neuroses and so forth, not wallowing in it, just a more facing up to and seeing what it is that we really are. There's one here, if there's no more hands at the moment, I just want to read a brief paragraph where he said there are many methods to becoming a Buddha or to knowing the Buddha within yourself, awakening the Buddha that lies within your heart, and you can select any way. So here he's opening up the embrace to include all, religious faith of all kinds can possibly lead to this end. In fact, from a Buddhist perspective, there's no place else they can lead to other than fantasy or delusion. So he goes on to say, many people rely upon the Nimbutsu, reciting the name of Buddha over and over, or upon the faith of the Jodo Shinshu. This does not matter. The important thing is the final destination. All these different paths connect at Buddhahood. The Buddha that is awakened in you or in me or in another person is the same Buddha. Now, I want to qualify that a little bit. He doesn't mean that we're somehow the same being. But the same Buddha nature, awakened nature, is the same for all, in fact, for all sentient beings, if on different levels, different scales. So this is not a mystical concept. If a sect does not teach finding this enlightenment or awakening the Buddha, it is not Buddhist. Zen is among these many different ways of finding enlightenment. The emphasis in Zen is upon the kensho, or sudden intuition. In Zen, it is believed that the mind, which one is aware of at this moment, can become enlightened in this life. The words Jikishin Nenshin complete the secret of Zen. They refer to this present life. So Jikishin is mind and Nenshin, mind and body. With this mind and body, we live, make a living, and contribute to society. Even though our minds can wander and we make mistakes, it can become enlightened. Even though our lives are filled with mixtures of good and bad, and crimes are committed, we cheat ourselves or others, we know suffering and pleasure, joy and sadness, we can find enlightenment. Where is paradise? A popular Japanese poet once wrote, "Where is paradise? East or west, north or south? It is in you." I saw just a little bit more because he's completing the thought. Dogen Zenji taught that all human beings have precious stone within them, shining like a diamond. Of course, this goes way back to the Mani jewel of India. Mani jewel means like the wish-fulfilling jewel. When you are able to see this treasure within you with your, quote, spiritual eyes, when you have grasped its deepest meaning, you will have intuited this enlightenment. You will never find it if you look for it far away. Socrates once said that you must know yourself. Everything is in you. Do not try to get something outside of yourself. Do not grasp for what is outside of yourself. Such things are fleeting or illusionary. What you have within is real. Light the lantern within yourself instead of putting a match to a candle in the wind. Do not point the light outward, but within. When you look inward, you will discover the princely Buddha within you. In the Hokkekyo Sutra, there's a prince who looks all over the world for a treasure, not realizing that he has a treasure within himself. Probably most of you have put a key in your pocket and then have forgotten where you have put it. You look in a bookstand and drawers, everywhere a key might be found. But then you may put your hand in your pocket by chance and find the lost key. Yes, the seeds of the Buddha you are seeking are within you in a marvelous form. The road to them is not distant. So you can see how he, like Dogen, he weaves between encouragement and explanation, description and prescription for practice and so forth. Description of reality, prescription for practice. Anybody else before we close? We're coming up on 1:45, so we still have plenty of time, but we can all go home early. I'm already home, so it's already early. Clear as day. Okay, good. In the room? Anybody in the room? Well, we encourage you to join again next week. Suki, do you have any announcements you'd like to make?
I'll make this into a meme, but according to nonprofit surveys, if I mention something about Dharma, y'all are like 20% more likely to give Dharma. So Dharma exists. Feel free to contribute to the Zen Center if you feel as such. And
We'll buy you a place in Tootsie to Heaven.
what we're giving out? What do the Catholic Church give out?
Papal indulgences.
Indulgences. Yeah, we're giving out indulgences now.
So you have a Roshi indulgence for this week. Take your pick, whatever you want.
That's all I have.
Anyone else in the room want to say anything? No. I have good news also online. The online Dokusan, if you're not familiar with it, contact me if you want to set up a regular time to talk. So many people are just seemingly, they're getting new jobs, they're getting better jobs. One of our young ladies in Wichita got back into theater, and she's now done something like 4 to 5 productions since I talked to her last, and going into others. So there is hope. You know, if you look at the world, it's pretty dismal right now. And you see climate change looming overall, as I do. It's kind of hard to buck yourself up, you know. But Zen has always claimed to have this method of confronting everything, including life, including death. And so you can ride your way through it on the cushion. Corolla's coming back on. I must have said something to offend somebody.
I'd like to leave with one thing that Matsuoka said a lot, which is every day a happy day.
Yeah.
And he had that very clear understanding that happy people spread happiness, unhappy people spread unhappiness. And I think that shines through in a lot of his writing and in a lot of his speaking. And so his Zen was not grim, it wasn't horrible, it wasn't torture, it was joyful. And I think that's an important thing to remember in our practice.
Yes, indeed.
Dojo
Every day is a happy
Sensei.
day, every day is a good day, regardless.
I'm sorry. I was going to say Alan had a question in the chat. Is there
Okay.
instruction on the page about the Thursday group?
The Thursday group should be announced on the web page 7 to 9 each fourth Thursday, which this month will be the 26th. And so find my email address and just send me a note on that, and I'll send it back to you. Any further details you need. It was a lively conversation last time. I expect it will be this time too. No restrictions on what you bring to the table, whatever's going on. So should we close? Please join in the Dharma closing verse. There are 4 vows. We repeat them 3 times. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. The illusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them.
Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Illusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it.
Another thing you can't trust is the public pronouncements on COVID virus. Take good care of yourself.
Thank you, everyone.